obviously, yesterday we had a debate here on DSA in the DNC. And after the debate, Jordy said that he had a couple of disagreements with Dylan. And so
Oh,
I
to be clear,
assume.
I had disagreements from getting context from his stream. I haven't seen the debate itself.
Yeah, he
So then, like, we
exactly
can
said I
talk
was
from the
shit,
debate then.
that I should die. He's gonna
Yeah.
dox me, in that
Oh.
order.
Okay,
Disavow,
cool.
but
Okay.
yeah, I did say that.
So, okay, so if Jordy, if you want to start off then and go ahead and explain your disagreements and where you want to start, we can go from there.
Oh, well, I think it's more so I do agree. I just don't really see it as an anti-DSA position for the most part. As far as the like campus influence in the international committee, I think that's a cancer, and it should be rooted out. And as far as the DSA platform being, just vaguely anti-war, I think it's in contradiction to having an international committee that is that has, you know, um, overrepresentation of particular caucuses that are, against the NATO expansionism and whatever fucking Russian propaganda it's thrown out there. I think the campus are a problem. But as far as the DSA itself, this seems to be not a DSA position insofar as Ukraine, and just more so a vocal that there's a really vocal international committee that has tons of like infighting and interorganizational debate about this topic isn't really like you couldn't call it like a concrete like ESA position, because the NPC took a alternative stance pretty immediately after the war in Ukraine started, and the international committee, so like, yeah, I don't see it as like a anti DSA position, but I see the like putting I think talking shit is the right thing to do. I think talking shit about it and putting pressure on people like uh Elisa and other people who have not made a sort of vocal like made it clear that they support if they do, right? Made it clear that they support continued funding for Ukraine. I think that they should, be pressured as much as possible, especially now, right?
Dylan?
Sure. So I think that it's true that it's not like a DSA doctrine in the idea that to join DSA you must like swear loyalty to Novorossiya, or like you must like disavow supporting Ukraine, or to get their endorsement even you must even take a specific position. But I don't know if I accept the idea that it isn't DSA's position, because whether much of the rest of DSA doesn't like it or not, the International Committee is what overwhelmingly deals with foreign policy when it deals, when it comes to the organization. Its anti-war subcommittee is co-chaired by somebody who is generally, I would just call them anti-Ukraine. And when you're messaging in this recent wave of victories, really big on anti-war. If you look at people who are either DSA aligned or DSA adjacent, right? So people that the DSA considers endorsing, people DSA endorses, or people who just DSA friendly, right? People, you would expect to work together in Congress. There's been a lot of leaning into the anti-war. When you look at the messaging on anti-war, it has to do with Gaza, which makes sense, and it has to do with Iran, which makes sense. But they seem to find it difficult in order to move Ukraine into that messaging, because in their minds it's no bombs unless they're good bombs for that one good war, and they just don't. That's what they think I'm asking them to do, which is not true. I'm asking for them to say, let's undermine the global war machine, whether it's Russian, whether it's American. Like, you could easily make some rhetoric that falls within
That's
this
the assumption, right? Because of the Dairy Lisa and PV
Well,
back
it's
and
not.
forth.
It's not. Well, there's the Daraliza back. Daraliza's back and forth only speaks to Daraliza, right? The Claire Valdez
Wait,
stance
really
only
quick,
speaks to Claire Valdez.
is the Dara Liza pronunciation, is that a pun?
No, I'm just a white man.
Oh, okay, no, I thought it was a Darliza, like a Trumpist kind of.
That was
That's, you know
Daria
what?
Lisa.
Can we go back? True. That's exactly what it was. Why not?
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm just very bad. I still say Harris just to be safe.
Oh no, you should call her whatever you want until she supports Ukraine.
I got bullied into saying Kamala instead of Kamala.
I don't know. I think it was wrestling destroyed me because I remember growing up and watching old. I think it was Kamala, or was it? What was his name? The big fat wrestler, legendary wrestler. Do you know who I'm talking
Never watched
about?
wrestling.
Well, whatever. It's okay.
I'm
a
not that
nerd.
way.
Continue.
But so like when it comes to that, I think like in that particular circumstance, and I can't say for sure because she hasn't made her position super clear. I can only go off of the interpretation of her tweet from before and what she said about Ukraine, just like specifically, which is pretty vague. And I could steel man it, and I can also be skeptical of it. My view is that one, she probably knows that she doesn't know shit about it, and two, she knows that there's sort of active debate within DSA. Three, that she is going to be and is a pretty big target of the right and left wing sort of media complex. And when you are running on a platform of being anti-war, pretty staunchly, and then you're asked whether or not you want to this U.S. war machine that they talk about, if you want that to fund Ukraine. As far as campaign messaging, that just seems like a really easy way to get yourself, the target of, being called out for contradiction. Now, would I agree with that? Probably not. No, I don't think that that's a clear-sighted view. But I could imagine that if there was any sort of influence from like campaign management or something like that, that the idea would be, yeah, just no one seems to be talking about Ukraine in the when it comes to these other campaigns. So like, it's like cost benefit analysis. That would be my guess. Now, whether or not she just actually has completely contradictory opinions on this and doesn't want it to be known, I guess it's possible. I don't really see it personally, but
Sure.
Well,
So
just
we
to
can go
be
back to
clear,
the.
I do want to ask,
Mhm.
just real quick, Jordy, do you believe that they are anti the Ukraine war overall as like an organization? When you say that they're not campist, or are you saying they're not really campist, but they're just anti-war, therefore they're anti the Ukraine war?
sorry. DSA?
Yes.
Well, I don't think that you could say that the DSA has any sort of consistent position on Ukraine. I don't think that you can
Consistent
say that. I
position.
think that, well, because the DSA is full of very the DSA is sort of characterized by a deep like active I guess there's a lot of diversity of opinion in DSA, and with Ukraine in particular, I think that one is sort of like being really actively debated. And you can go read the debates or watch debates on YouTube with
You're
people
saying
in
because
DSA
they're
fighting about this
decentralized,
as
they have a
well.
bunch of like local chapters that all have their
They
own
have
positions.
not just the
But on
chapters,
the
they have different
DSA,
caucuses. Yeah,
well, on
they
the
have different
DSA
caucuses
website, they
technically.
do have like positions posted on there about the Ukraine war. Do you think that does that not really speak for the DSA as an organization?
No, so the DSA as an organization is characterized by its composition, which has different chapters, different caucuses, and this active debate that's happening between these between different members and caucuses and committees. And like when we look at the platform itself, like which gets updated and revised, pretty constantly, especially given the fact that it's grown so much in a very short period of time. that like actually literally say that the DSA has like this functional opinion or this functional opinion. It's just not really the case on things like Ukraine. You could say it maybe on capitalism. You could say it maybe on like I don't know, on ICE. There's some pretty hard lines. Um, hmm. But when it comes to the war in
Palestine
Ukraine,
would be another
sadly enough,
example.
sorry,
Palestine would be
Palestine.
an example, right?
yeah, Palestine would
Another
be an
hardline
example. Yeah.
issue, yeah.
Well, kind of. There's actually a lot of fighting about some of the like more tanky influences that would be. There was some. I think it was the Red Star uh, caucus that ended up putting out this sort of statement that was saying we do not condemn Hamas and neither should you. And then there is other left wing caucuses that were really pissed off about this, and then they put out like a whole like polemic about this. Um, and so, yeah, when it comes to the campus influence, and when it comes to like the like tankies that are in DSA, I think that they're actively a problem. I think most people understand that they're a problem, that are not in like any of these different tanky caucuses. Um, but I wouldn't want to like overemphasize their position. And so when you end up getting um like this sort of vague position on Ukraine, you're looking at a situation where like some people who want to continue funding for Ukraine also feel like the war was ultimately started because of NATO expansionism, or some people are like obviously the more takey influence. Some people think that it has nothing to do with NATO expansionism. It's just Russian imperialism. However, that the United States is funding Ukraine specifically for the purpose of trying to make the war last as long as possible, use it as sort of like a
Mhm.
meat factory for U.S. imperialism and making money on selling weapons.
Testing ground for weapons and such, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so those are the kind of things that you'll see in the debates within DSA with these different members. And when you
Would you
have
say that
that
a
kind
lot
of,
of it is also about not even necessarily if it's wrong for the Ukrainians to defend itself, but should you be financing the defense companies which profit off the suffering in many other corners of the globe in order to serve as their tool of liberation? Yeah, I've talked to a lot of these people. I agree there's a debate, but that we could use that as a launching off point. Why? Because this has been going on for 5 years, 12 if you include if you include the entirety of it. And so, I mean, if this was the first month, maybe the first three, and there was still like vigorous debate up and down the org, okay, you're still figuring out where Ukraine is on the map. I get it. I understand. But there is no debate on Palestine outside of the idea of like, should we put the red triangle or should we not? Let's be careful about that.
well,
We should message to
so
normal
to be fair on
people.
the Palestine thing, there is
Like
big debate on the one
there's
state
no
two state
caucus within
solution.
DSA that says we should send weapons to Israel, is there?
Well, no, of course not. No, of course not.
So there are certain red lines when it comes to things like that. Like even
Mhm.
air defense
Yeah,
systems or things that
if
would
you
be
take that
considered as
example,
defensive
I don't
weapons,
think that
that's
that's a
all
I don't think
like
that's one
off
to
the
one at all.
table.
I don't think that that's
Well,
like a one
I
to one
know it's not
example.
one to one, but I'm saying that that's something that largely wasn't. It's not like Palestine came out of nowhere, but that was after October 7th that most of the focus, both in activist circles and in DSA, came in on Palestine policy or Palestine related policy. So that's been about like 3 years now since October, roughly 3 years since October 7th, maybe 10 months, whatever. This has been going on for 5 years, and the level of like policy discussion at DSA on Ukraine, which is the largest war on the planet and the biggest mass expulsion of like people currently happening on the planet, and the debate on this is as low level as it could possibly be, and it's still the same topics as it was day one. And so I agree that there's debate. I disagree that there's vigorous debate. When I talk to, for example, Ukrainians in DSA, elected Ukrainian Americans in DSA, or elected sympathetic people who, because they do exist, it's not like they get expelled from the from the party because you have a very like normie American opinion. Most Americans support Ukraine. But what they tell me is that it's still generally hostile, that they still get negative reactions, that they are, no matter how hard they try, there'll be some people that are impossible to move, and that they have to do leaps and bounds and engage in some sort of performance as if a purity test by being associated with this. Oh, I swear I'm one of the good Ukrainians. Oh, I swear,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
one of
No, I mean,
I'm one of the I'm not some like Azov Nazi. I swear to God, I just don't want my people to be ethnically cleansed.
yeah,
And
yeah, 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 yeah,
this
yeah.
this doesn't exist for other colonized or impressed upon people by empire. This there's not a test like that in like left-wing movements for Palestinians. No one's like, "Oh, you one of the pro-Hamas Palestinians? Or you one of the?" That doesn't exist. And so obviously these are not one-to-one issues. There's differences here. But when we're talking about outcome, if we're saying we're against what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank because ethnic cleansing is bad. People have a right to rule themselves, people have a right to have a future for themselves and be free from bombing and terror and occupation and all of the little oppressions that come with occupation that many people who have never been unoccupied wouldn't think of. Language is being forced upon you, religion being forced upon you, your freedom of expression being taken away, you not being able to go outside without having to pass military checkpoints. Like when it comes to the felt experience of Ukrainians, this war is as brutal as it could get, yet there's no emphasis to have a discussion about it. And when we talk about official DSA messaging, it is all garbage. There is no good DSA messaging on Ukraine. For example, we say like the different chapters might be good. That's true. There's a difference between New York DSA and Metro DSA. Very different
I mean,
organizations.
like I said, even when it comes to the different chapters, like it's such different sort of animal. Where like sometimes you'll get a chapter that has like 20 members. Sometimes you'll get a chapter that has like thousands of members. It's and then even between all of those, they have like different caucuses and stuff like that. It just kind of depends on the people that are joining and organizing,
Is there
and
any
it's
good
yeah, it's
messaging on from DSA on this?
is there any good message? I mean, the NBC, as we talked about earlier, the NBC put out a completely like contradictory um, uh, uh, stance on Ukraine, like right after the war started, right? Um, and so like
What was that stance?
obviously, I don't think that it's like I said, I agree with the idea that that there's overrepresentation of my campus, that they don't have a clear enough like position because of all of this sort of background stuff. But the idea that I guess I'd be curious what the like the positive position if your position right now is just um you're not even close to a I guess as an organization having a unified stance on this, that kind of goes without saying here, right? Like if it was the case that the DSA was to put out a statement that is saying that we have this position, and then
Well,
when
it's
you
not
look at
about
the
even they
actual
have an
composition of
organized stance on
DSA
it. It's that
and you see that like
they don't
there
even know what they're
that
talking
it's
about.
not the
That's
case,
my
like
problem.
the what?
My problem isn't that they don't have organization on their stance. My problem is that they haven't even begun to really discuss the issue in earnest. 5 years in, it's still the same topics that you were hearing
What
a
does that
month
mean?
into
Like
the war.
discuss the what do you mean by that? Do you mean like that there's
Discuss
no
like an
debates happening
outcome-based
or
approach. And ever, for example, what has DSA put out in the last 2 years on Ukraine since Trump got into office? When I go and I scrub their messages, ever since Trump got into office, DSA just doesn't talk about Ukraine anymore. They talked about it in 2023, they talked about it in 22, they even talked about it in 24. But once Biden left office, all emphasis to either stop sending weapons to, not add fuel to the fire or like discussion, it just like ceased. And so when Trump, and this is my belief, when Trump cut off support for Ukraine, which was the policy of a lot of people at DSA, that they thought that if we didn't add fuel to the fire, the war would end, and it didn't. They didn't have an answer on what to do next, and so they merely focused on other more hot button, easier to fundraise foreign policy issues, even though Ukraine is still the bloodiest and deadliest war currently raging on the planet, where more Russians have died trying to take the Donbass than Americans died in World War II. I mean, so when you talk about the scale of violence and the lack of like really any like a application of like critical thinking of like what's an outcome based approach to even end the violence, even just a basic anti-war position,
I think
there's
that this is
not really
unique to
anything there.
do you think that this is unique to DSA? Do you think that Democrats are taking um like public,
I have I have
strong
similar I
opinions on
have
this?
different disagreements. I remember I talked to the one of the co-chairs of the Democratic Party about this very issue because I was saying, what is a proactive stance that the Democratic Party can take 2027, they take back the House, they take back the Senate, so they can do something now, not just waiting until we have another Dem president because like tons of people will die in the meantime. And I
Hmm.
said, would you guys support a package to that would do a bunch of things to end the war? Give the Ukrainians the means to stop Russian advances, while also making it much harder for the Russians to fund the war, making it so that they have a much more stark question before them, more likely to negotiate, more likely to get a ceasefire. That's what I see as literally the only pathway forward. If somebody else is willing to offer me one, I am more than all ears. And when I put this to the co-chair and I said, will they support this bill? She said, uh, uh, hopefully. And I said, will they though? Hopefully. And so I didn't get no strong commitment from this person of authority, and that made me worried. Uh, but when I look at the centrists and when I look at the what you would say establishment Democrats or people who you would consider not of the new left that we see rising, it's not a debate. It's not a discussion. It's a, yeah, we should support Ukraine. We might not know exactly how to support them to get it over, but if it means another package, if it means another this, if it means another that, yeah, we generally are supportive of it. We're on board. For DSA, you don't have even that level of, I would call, bare minimum. So that's why I am in a position where I'm not some Obama failed Ukraine, Bill Clinton failed Ukraine, like every living Democrat failed Ukraine to different extents. So it's not that I have like a particular like love for the Democratic Party's policy on Ukraine. It's
Okay,
just
but
that
the thing
they
is
got
that the Democrats are sort of is institutionally and through status quo inheriting a position where they can say that, because it's not like the DSA themselves have basically like any
it's
functional
very easy for them.
like
Yes,
role in this,
absolutely.
right? Democrats do, and so it's really easy for a Democrat to say that they will do X, Y, and Z because they already have that status quo sort of like that's already just being inherited. They don't even have to fucking think about it. When it comes to DSA, which is a totally different um like DSA is not running any of the like it's not up to the DSA. Even when it comes to the people that like we mentioned before, at the people that have been endorsed by the DSA, even with a uh, disproportionate amount of where the left wing basically had the majority of the seats in the NPC, like the people that were endorsed ended up supporting Ukraine and supporting funding for Ukraine, right? So like as far as the I guess you could say the institutional influence of DSA, it'd be hard to not also be able to say the same thing that it's like this is largely about messaging at that point.
For Democrats, it is very easy to take a pro-Ukraine position because they don't have the same social clique or the same even considerations that many Marxists within DSA or like leading people on these committee positions. There's nobody, the average Democrat's not thinking, I don't want to give Raytheon money. They might think, I don't really care if Raytheon gets money or not. But the idea of like nationalizing defense in that way. I mean, I don't even see DSA or socialists talk about how you would actually approach defense policy different from a manufacturing perspective, who would make the shells, who would make the tanks, who would make the thing. It's just generally the idea that we should make less, right?
Well, I
So
mean,
there's
considering
already
the fact that like what was it like
Mhm.
in the past like 4 years or something, the amount of people that were in DSA like 4 years ago to like today is like pretty crazy. Like you have it's like all of a sudden like at over 100,000 or members
roughly 100
that are
over
like
100,000. I saw the number.
yeah, it's like roughly over 100,000, but like the like majority of the people that are in DSA are new as well, and when it comes to the like the structure of DSA, when it comes to the influence of DSA, when it comes to the amount of political power that they actually have in the first place. We're talking about something that is like uh, like brand new. Like I would say maybe even that in this short period of time, the amount of development that DSA has had politically and the influence that they've been able to get, how effective they've been, you know, in in elections recently. I think all of these things show a sort of healthy growth, and I wouldn't want to be in a position where it's like, okay, well, the DSA has to have, you know, all of their ducks in a row, like right off the bat. You know, when you have all of these new faces, all of these differing opinions, it's just kind of not what DSA is. Like, I feel like the expectation is for DSA to have the institutional sort of uh, structure and influence of the Democrats without actually having that. You know,
Well, I'm
it
not
just seems kind
asking
of like
for DSA
unreasonable.
to. Well, I'm not. My position isn't that DSA needs to have a really effective solution to replace Raytheon from a defense economics perspective. That's a very complicated policy question of how you would remake a modern, non-coercive military industrial like system that isn't like the modern American one. It's completely foreign to us as Americans. And so that's a very complicated question. I can understand that DSA would want to get maybe more than a few, like half a dozen members in Congress before they would want to have that conversation. I understand that. The war that's been going on for 5
Okay,
years,
then I just
that I
didn't understand
understand less.
the statement that you made about like you know they don't even have a position
Well, no,
on
it's just these are things that as you build that, because if somebody, for example, says, I don't want to support Ukraine because I don't want to give Raytheon money and I don't want to give defense companies money that profit from the suffering of people and corrupt our politics. You're strengthening institutions that are corrosive to the American Republic, and as Americans, we should not stand by that. I understand where the position comes from, but you need to have an answer for what should do that instead, and also what we should do in the meantime. If you believe that water should be a public good or that railways should be nationalized, you don't, in the meantime, as people are desperately gasping for water to live, say, well, I don't want to give you the private company water. The private company shouldn't be profiting off of the basic needs of the. Yeah, there's a moral dilemma here, but you have to function. Need to make something that functions in the short term to aim for your long-term goals of changing how defense policy works. And so there's not been really a discussion about that. There hasn't been. It's since we've all been in the first stage of discussion, we haven't gotten anywhere close to these types of talks that need to happen on the left. And instead,
Mhm.
we're in the
Yeah,
area where we're saying to
and
help
not even
Ukraine is
close
to
for
help
the
Raytheon.
Democrats either. Yeah, not even close for
Well, of course,
Democrats either.
Democrats are even further away. I'm just saying that if DSA wants to present a serious alternative, they can't look like the Democrats are outflanking them on this issue,
Hmm.
which they
So
are. I mean, from my
yeah, well, the
discussion
thing
with a
is
lot of
that,
these
like I said, with
campaigns,
that is
they
that you
they're
have Democrats
afraid. Like
that
the
basically
progressive
inherit.
campaigns talk to me from a position of almost fear sometimes because they know in Democratic primaries, 95% of Democrats support Ukraine, and they don't want us to release like a negative ranking of
Yeah, but
them.
why
But they
though? Yeah,
also
but why?
because they think it'll make them look bad in comparison to establishment Democrats that they're trying to unseat. They'll look
Because
unprogressive to the
it's
majority of
institutionally
progressives.
popular, because they're part of that. They're part of a institution that already exists as such. Like, they're inheriting a status quo. This is not the way that
Yeah,
the
they
DSA functions.
outflanked. That's what makes it more embarrassing. Democrats outflanked DSA on the issue by standing still.
And yet, at the same time, you have Democrats who, you know, don't know how to say a thing about Israel as well, right? Like,
Absolutely.
these are all characterized. Like, I don't, like I said, I don't disagree with the sort of frustration that people aren't, you know, I guess, developing their position on this. But I think that there's a sort of a number of issues that like characterize this that are not unique to the DSA, and also I think what we see here is something that is ultimately like more active politically when it comes to the sort of the democratic aspect of this. that is, more functional within the DSA than you do have with the Democrats, who are basically just picking up opinions and positions just because of status quo consensus, getting votes of their own. And that's also sort of the negative aspect, is that when you have like active like democratic debates and you have a bunch of brand new people that are coming in, and you have these developing structures of their own that they're trying to work out, the funding and all of these things, it characterizes a situation that is necessarily going to be slow. And so when it comes to things that are going to have more sort of debate back and forth, when it comes to things that are going to be, I think even you're characterizing this as something that you can easily understand as complicated when it comes to Raytheon, when it comes to stuff like that, especially from I'm sure you could imagine from an anti-capitalist position, even without the campus stuff, that like you would kind of expect a democratic, an actually democratic organization to be slow, because
Not this
democracy
slow.
is slow. No, it's
Not 5 years. I
upsetting.
mean, they weren't that slow when it came to
How many people were
Palestine's
in DSA?
plight.
How many people that are in DSA today were in DSA 5 years ago?
I mean, the people in leadership positions, much of them are the same people. Especially when you talk about, I know I don't want to
The
beat
IC,
beat
with the
the horse
IC.
here, but the IC especially, yeah.
Well, with the IC, yeah.
I mean, those people have been there since like 2010. I mean, we're talking about people who've been there for like over a decade, like who
You're
have
not gonna hear me
established
defend the IC.
themselves
You're
in the
not gonna hear me defend the
organization.
IC. No, like I said, I completely agree that the IC is, has this campus
Do you think it should be
underrepresented
gotten rid of? Like they need to start a new organization, like top bottom?
entirely. I don't know how I don't know the best approach to dealing
I
with,
mean, now's the
like,
time they're growing. If there was a time to do it, it would be now.
get rid of the IC, to get rid of the IC also while you have all of this going on with Iran and Israel and stuff like that. It looked like here, I don't know if just outright removing the IC is going to be the case. Is going to be like the best way forward.
Do we want
Um,
the IC to be the ones handling such an important set of issues?
no, I don't want the people that are in the IC to be in the to be the leadership in the IC.
How do you get rid of that problem after like a decade of entrenchment without getting rid of the IC itself?
I don't know. Possibly by getting rid of it, or possibly other ways. I don't know. I don't really have a. I don't think I have a strong enough understanding of like um, the structural relationship of the IC with the NPC and the rest of DSA to say how you would deal with this problem.
Okay,
I don't think I really
that's
have to have a
perfectly
position on
fine.
that. Yeah.
Wait, can I ask you a
That's
question?
perfectly fine.
Why is it that so I feel like normally when somebody doesn't actually have to make a lot of decisions and deal with the blowback of their decisions or the consequences of it, they don't actually have to make a decision and see the outcome afterwards and deal with the blowback. What isn't that normally the way that we would assess this and say that these are easier decisions for the DSA to make than it would be for Democrats who are actually in office, who are actually voting on things, and then uh, have to actually see what happens with Ukraine and what happens with the as an outcome of their vote.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying because the Democrats have sort of like more at stake because like it's their careers and they're sort of institutionally embedded, that like the like the negative sort of blowback actually has like career implications for them, that would be more
Yeah,
like, what do you
because
mean?
people in the DNC, they don't have like relationships in Congress. They don't have relationships with other people across the seas. They don't have like deals that they're making, negotiations that they're part of, and so it doesn't that make everything just a lot easier for them to come to the right decision without all of these other outside factors.
Well, I don't know about I don't know if we can make any sort of one-to-one comparisons when you have Democrats that if you come to the right position because I don't know, lobbying from Raytheon or some shit, is that the right position? Like, I don't know if these are really like comparable.
Can I be a devil's advocate for a moment and
Yeah.
say kinda in like for me, like maybe I'm cynical, right? I don't know, maybe the last 5 years has made me much more cynical, but like I've been saying this a lot lately. Politicians are not your friends. They are potential opportunities for change. They are power brokers and they're nothing more. They either do things to help you or they don't do things to help you. And I don't care if they've been there for 20 years. I don't care if you met their dog. I don't care if they're very nice or they can do the Macarena and you like that. I don't give a fuck. At the end of the day, they are either going to do or not going to do the things. If somebody votes, for example, the Ukraine Support Act, for me was a very influential, like a really important piece of legislation because it was a good litmus test for people who were in office. And I think if it passed, it could have actually been the real first significant step for the entirety of this administration to ending the war, because the Russian psychology is the Americans are gone. And if there's any indication that the Americans are actually going to substantially make it harder for them to advance when the Russians are already running into all these other problems, then the war could end. And I think that would be very, very good. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No, I agree with that. The thing that I was sort of getting at is that when we talk about like Democrats who are have like the right position, like having the right position, it doesn't reflect anything about their structure or their legitimacy. If you're coming to the right position because of lobbying from Raytheon, right? Just insofar as that, like, yeah, of course, I still would want more weapons to go to Ukraine. Yeah, of course. But when it comes to like Democrats who have a position on Ukraine, I like most of them are basically just like defaulting into the U.S. Hegemonic order and status quo that already exists, and not much else. And you would never find that same kind of influence in DSA. It's like a totally different kind of thing.
I think that it's true that they're the same influence. Like, there's no Raytheon like in DSA lobbying DSA members to go like bomb X, Y, or Z country. That doesn't exist as it exists for people who are in positions of power. Maybe that will change as more of DSA people get elected and we have DSA's Fetterman or like whatever we see in the future. But I will say also that to me that puts more responsibility on DSA to get to the right position, because then if anything they're rewarding people for taking the easy path that ended up being the correct path because the broken clock is right twice a day. And ultimately what that means is by them not being imaginative enough, not being able to dream despite the fact that the left are supposed to be the dreamers, that leaves Democrats with an easy W that they can say, hey, look at these guys. They don't stand against imperialism. They just do it when it's not America, because they're self-loathing Americans. That's all that is. And you might say, hey, no, they disagree because of all of these very complex reasons that they haven't even started having a discussion of since 5 years since the war started. But it's just,
here's the thing that it keeps coming back to, I think, is that when you say DSA and you say they should have this or they should do this or they should do that, it seems like you're talking about DSA as though it is something very different from what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about DSA, I'm talking about a network of very sort of a network of socialists, and any fucking socialist knows how much socialists fight with socialists. And when it comes to all the things that I mentioned before, like I don't really have the ability to talk about DSAs, and like I can grant basically every single thing that you're saying. I have no problem doing that, but like, is that a realistic like argument? I don't actually think so. I think the thing that is a realistic argument is could be more fundamental to what should change in DSA to make it possible to have better positions on the war in Ukraine and have better advocacy and messaging for that. Those are things that I think would be meaningful. As far as just saying, I think DSA should have a better position on Ukraine. That's just what it is, But we're talking about not just like a crystallized institution. We're talking about a very diverse, vast network of very disagreeable individuals, who happen to be being politically effective by virtue of the fact that they are getting together, organizing, and fighting with each other. So like in that context, I can sort of, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. I can virtue signal all I want about what DSA ought to have a more coherent position on, that I think would be more of a argument for me to join DSA and then fight that and talk that kind of shit, and bring the fight to them, right? Because that is how that actually happens.
Let me
Outside
my
of like
position is
when it comes to
not
the
my
rest of
position.
DSA, when it comes to just as like a little like because I think this is important. When it comes to the development of DSA, I think the development of DSA is something that is important, just holistically for American politics, and I think it's something that has to be invested in. And so when it comes to positions like these, because DSA is something that I believe has to be invested in, because of because of all of the things I could list off about Trump and ICE and what's happening to immigrants and what's going on in Iran and all of the shit, right? Because of all of these things, I think it's important to that the DSA has more political power and more political efficiency. By virtue of that, political efficiency is also being able to, fight your way through these sort of kind of debates and come to a meaningful position.
Sure. So I agree that it is very different. And when I say DSA should do this, I am talking about it as an amorphous blob. And it is not just an amorphous blob. It is a bunch of different, like the West Coast teams, the East Coast teams. Even in Maryland, the different teams are very different. If you're in Moco or if you're in Prince George's County or wherever. But that didn't stop the organization from making statements about the war. That didn't stop there not being enough backlash against these statements for any of them to be retracted or for them not to continue to make more statements that were like them. And those statements at the start of the war were that giving anything to Ukraine would prolong it, that if we gave them weapons, if we gave them assistance, it would prolong this fighting, and we don't want to do that because it would kill more civilians and it would, risk nuclear war. And then it was, we don't want to give money to Raytheon, and it was, militarism is bad, and if we give this to Ukraine, then what about water at home, right? These were the things that DSA took up as its flag when the Ukrainian people were being massacred after we disarmed them, where they were talking about the risks of nuclear war when we disarmed the Ukrainians from atomic bombs under the promise that this exact thing would not happen. And the rest of the world is going to look at that and say, well, maybe I need an atomic bomb so I don't end up like the Ukrainians. What is actually worse for, long-term nuclear Armageddon for our children, and not just our immediate safety, but for the future? And these are just, to me, it's not just that none of these things deserve a discussion. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that these were the focuses. At this moment of absolute mass terror where we set the Ukrainians up to be butchered by disarming them, the answer was disarm them harder, which is not a good answer. And they haven't had any other answer since. And when we finally did disarm them harder, they just stopped talking. They just stopped putting out statements about it as an amorphous blob. And I agree, that doesn't mean everybody at MoCo DSA or the real fascists of the organization, North Star DSA, or I don't know, like whoever you would imagine. But it's still a show that the rest of the country sees. When people come to me and I'm like, what do you think DSA is? Because I ask people this. What do you think DSA's position on Ukraine is? Oh, they don't like them. Why? Because I saw this thing they put out. I saw DSA put it out. It wasn't DSA New York. It wasn't DSA Metro. It wasn't DSA. It was DSA, logo of like the main DSA.
Granted, I bet if you were asked the same question to random Americans, they would say the opposite, though. Not to say that that's not inoffensive.
Speaking about people who care about Ukraine, speaking to those who care about this issue, the random person would be like, what's that abbreviation? I don't exactly know yet. DSA is growing, but it hasn't grown that fast. So I think that it's one thing if it was just at the start of the war they said nothing, and it's been like that the whole time, and it was the sort of infighting silence and I would not be happy about it, but it would not be as bad as saying something like that and then generally say nothing once that proved to not work, which seems to, I mean, like at the moment, like what is how different is DSA's position from Trump's when it comes to an outcome-based perspective on Ukraine? It's not like when it comes to maybe the mineral deal, I would say is probably the biggest difference. It's a clear example of, colonial, like economic exploitation, economic exploitation. At the end of the day, though, like it's still the same answer, which or lack
Well,
of
what we
answer.
heard from
Both.
Hassan yesterday, Hassan put out that clip saying, like, well, people are dying. All that matters is that we stop the war. We just want peace. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So people should just stop. And that is exactly like what I heard from MAGA and what I heard from Trump the entire time. It's just we just want peace. So that's better.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is not really like a like I agree with the sentiment, but I don't think that this is like a meaningful argument when you have Trump's never had a meaningful position on Ukraine at all, and he's
Has
had
DSA
Trump has never had
has
a
DSA ever had a meaningful position on Ukraine either?
No, but I'm characterizing why that is because we're comparing
Okay.
like apples to oranges is what I'm saying. The reason why is going to be different here, and the reason why Trump doesn't have a meaningful position is very, very different than the reason why Democrats seem to have a meaningful position. But even then, I think that the Democrats are basically inheriting this, and but I think an interesting sort of something similar to this that you see with the Democrats, because I would probably say something similar when it comes to Democrats and immigration, is that when you had, but the Democrats are also they have institutional power and they have political power and they can actually act on these things. It's not just messaging that they put out. But when they're trying to get votes and they're trying to get people into positions of political power, they will try to meet the MAGA politics in the middle, and they'll start talking about wanting to have strong borders, and they want to like what was it the Biden administration, like near the end of their administration, they um, were wanting to fund they wanted to fund the border wall, and they wanted to have like all of these different ways to strengthen the border and stuff like that. So just because they wanted to be able to play off of it on the election, and not because of any sort of like actual political interest in the matter, they just defaulted to some positions because they felt like it was politically effective to do so.
You mean the James
Was
Langford
like,
plan?
is that?
The James Langford.
Yeah, the Langford bill. What were the difference
Mhm.
between those two things that you just mentioned? You said not for any political reasons, but because they wanted political efficiency. What were the
No, because they wanted to be able to play off of it in the election with Trump, so that they're not seen as being like this is my interpretation at least, is that they didn't want to be seen as like the Biden open border
weak on the
and
border? Yeah.
you know
Well,
it's
what
like
It was
reason
also because
would you
Ukraine aid was held hostage, and the Republicans said that they wouldn't pass any aid to Ukraine unless they dealt with the real invasion, the Southern invasion.
yeah, and then the Democrats said okay, yeah, look, we're gonna deal with basically we're gonna be dealing with the southern invasion. Now can we get the money for Ukraine? It's like this is the kind of games that you're playing here. So like the things that characterizes these decisions.
Wait, but wasn't the
it's like,
money for Ukraine in the Langford bill demanded by Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate? That wasn't a Democrat demand. That was a Republican
It was
demand.
the Ukraine aid section of it. It was Trump. They were gonna pass the Ukraine aid bill, and they were all on board. And then the idea came from Trump that maybe this is not the best idea to just let the Democrats
Yeah, but
go
that was
forward
Mitch
with this.
McConnell that was pushing for the Ukraine aid to be part of the Langford bill in the Senate. Mitch McConnell and the Republican senators
I
were the
don't
ones who
remember if it
asked
was
for
Mitch
it.
As far as I remember, it was that we're gonna hold the Ukraine aid hostage until you give us border, contribution, some border contribution. And then
Okay, I
when they
know
did
this is
that,
like a
then they signed
separate
the
thing, but
in
it
any
was
case, this is
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
characterizes this is the kind of dynamic that characterizes the positions that the Democrats and Republicans take, right? Is these kinds of games, and so when we're talking about statements that come from Democrats, when we're talking about positions that come from Democrats, um, more often than not, it's about this sort of like electoral process. It's about gathering votes, and it's about reading polling data to see what people already believe or what people would vote for, and then taking that position. So it's like, yeah, when you have an institution that is actually like organized around trying to be as popular as possible, and if the popular position is something that is like um, uh, or not even just like the popular position, just like what can get votes, right? Like the popular position is not something that is like affirmative. It's always something that's sort of like logistical, right? When you have that logistical way of taking positions for these for getting into office, or you're maintaining your career, or whatever. This is a totally different kind of situation than having a bunch of people that there's tons of people in DSA that don't even want
So I'm
to
asking,
have
what is the
elections,
opposite side
and
of
don't
that,
even
though?
want to do this game of electoralism, right? Um, and what is the reason for these for the debates and the argument? The reason for the debates and the arguments inside DSA is in any case about being politically like not just effective but like correct, and like a long like they're utopians, they're fucking
But I'm
revolutionaries, they're fucking
asking, what is the opposite, and
anti-capitalist and shit,
what
right?
is the opposite side of the, like you were saying, they're doing it for votes? I'm asking, what is the antithetical to that? What is the other side that you're asking for besides electoral electability?
Well, because when you have if you're talking about DSA and you're talking about people that they want to sort of be able to get votes, they want to play that game of the electoralism so then they can get people in their power. That is like a position. It's like a general position of people in DSA, but only by virtue of the fact of like their political sort of um, their political project, not in terms of a career, not in terms of lobbying, not in terms of maintaining a career that isn't there. But even that is like that's not even like the like how do I put this, the way that the DSA is organized is not one of maintaining institutional power that they don't have, and it is one that is organized around trying to figure out like trying to basically deconstruct the entire political establishment. Like this is a totally sort of like different beast here.
But by getting elected, right?
Some of them don't even want electeds. Some of them don't even believe in electoralism at all. Some of them are would want to sort of excise electeds. There's but these are people that are trying to think in this sort of like long-term view of like, okay, not only the political establishment of the United States, but the order of the capitalist market economy and imperialism, all of that. Like, how do you construct a vision of being able to uh, dismantle these sort of institutions? That when that is the political basis of the DSA, that
I, I,
that gets complicated really, really quickly. And the motivations for the positions that people have, it's going to be weighted against that. That even if you are arguing in favor of softening positions over here because you want people to be able to get elected, it's because of the fact that they want to be effective on this much larger political project that is much more theoretical, ideological, etc. Like, does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at here? Is that like
I think so. I the reason when you mentioned that, what I think of is the fact that they got rid of I think it's called the Hammond rule in the DSA, which was initially, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but the fact that they had a rule that was that they weren't going to have like more extreme tankies and communist and authoritarian people part of the DSA. And it was literally a rule that if they found out that people were any of those things, that they would kick them out. and they got rid of that rule about, I think it was about 5 years ago, and now it's been becoming more and more popular. But the entire idea behind the DSA and what Hammond was building was that they wanted people who were electorally viable, who would be able to work with Democrats and work within the Democrat Party and start to take over that party. But I agree that yes, there are more people in there who don't even believe in elections.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to build a if you're trying to build an organization that is democratic, that just seems like a pretty anti-democratic kind of rule, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't think that they would allow Republicans in, or like MAGA, but
Well, I mean,
Would there be a fascist caucus?
if the main organizing principle of DSA is that you're a democratic socialist, yeah, it not being a democratic socialist might be the thing there. But to say that, and listen, but if it were up to me, yeah, get these fucking tankies out of there. Yeah, whatever. But I would imagine that this is not going to be viewed as like the most democratic sort of position to take, right? To say that like, oh, this is a socialist organization, but not these socialists, right? Obviously, if you had someone saying that they're a fucking national socialist or something, they would be fucking jumped or something. But like, yeah.
sure. I mean, the last thing I'll say, and Dylan, I'll let you go, is that from my understanding, being a democratic socialist is a specific thing. Like, it's not like, it is a type of socialist. And so while I understand like the democratic aspect of it,
socialism basically like is by definition democratic. Saying democratic is just a way of getting around the dogma and propaganda of that was developed about the USSR and China, and then also
sure, I don't
by the
disagree with
USSR and
that.
China,
But democratic socialist is still a certain type of thing. Like, it's not just socialists who are democratic. I agree with you that all socialism is democratic and all communism is democratic. But democratic socialism seems to be like a certain type of like Nordic model almost, where they're trying to socialize more things within the economy and give people more social programs.
Social democracy versus democratic socialism.
Well, that's a sock dem. Yeah, I'm separating.
So, I mean, just
sock dem
like
and dem socks. From talking to a Kano boy, that's the way that he explained it to me, and then going through like the Wikipedia on this.
No, I don't.
Their website.
Personally, I don't find an issue with that. I know that some socialists would, but like for me, socialism is a very vague term, as is capitalism, and it just sort of defers to the disproportionate amount of power. Is it with the socialists? Is it with the people, or is it with private entities? And so capitalism is about the rule of private entities insofar as the market arrangement, and then socialism has to do with more social control in the market arrangement. And so by that virtue, when you have when you're nationalizing industries and you have some sort of a democratic process here, then it is more socialist. That's just, I have no problem with people saying that, like, I don't know, that like the
more things the government does, the more socialism.
Or whatever the fuck. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, to me, it's about the distribution of power, basically.
Dylan?
Sure, I don't want to just keep going down the same rabbit hole here, but I heard a lot about, these are people who are trying to build a wider, like a deeper down the road mission, like a down the road type of dream or utopia. And so they're working like in an entirely different framework. And I agree that, again, the left are dreamers. That's one of the main things that I would say.
I wouldn't say that, like, I would just use the term utopian lightly, because I think they are oriented towards like effective politics. It's just a disagreement of that.
But they want to build something new. They want to build something effective, new, and from the ground. And okay, that's great. Effective, new, looking towards a different system. These are all fantastic. But everything I've seen when it comes to this specific war that I know has been unbelievably unimaginative and it hasn't been very effective, and they haven't really pushed in any direction besides the wrong one. And when they're doing the best is when they're doing nothing, because they're not saying anything, and they're not like being like some people. I think when it comes to the war in Ukraine, as much as I want awareness, as much as that helps to be a thing, like some people are better just not speaking about it. And I've kind of gotten to the position where until DSA has finishes this discussion or gets something somewhere closer, or at least make progress in this internal discussion, it's probably best that the organization itself, not the candidates, of course, the candidates have to have a position, you're running for office, but the organization itself might be better just not saying anything, because I don't think I really trust the organization to talk about the war to any real extent.
Is it not
While
say
there's
anything
been a
about
lot
the
of,
war, or just not say anything
yeah,
like
just
in
like
general?
just be about the war, like just never speak about Ukraine at this point would be probably my main advice to the organization, because I don't think that they have really the experience or the knowledge or even an idea of how to engage with it. And if they haven't gotten it 5 years in, I don't know if they're really going to get it.
I'm just not quite sure what that means. Again, like I hate to be nitpicky, I don't know what the they is in this situation.
They is
Um,
the organization Democratic Socialists of America. It
yeah,
has
like the
chairs, co-chairs, it has that. They, as a group, on their website, if you go to it, they put out statements where they talk about what should be done, and what should be done is either nothing or going back on the very little bit of positive action the United States has taken.
I thought
So
so. Wait,
when I
I thought the issue that you had with Daria Lisa is that she didn't take a position. So you're saying that
Yeah, no, my standard for an organization like DSA, which I've lost all hope in, and a candidate that's running for office and therefore is going to have a final vote on these, those are two different things.
so when it comes to DSA, so like outside of
Well, because I don't think DSA could say anything intelligent about Ukraine, so I think they should say nothing at all. When it comes to somebody who has a vote when they get into office, like Doc, she she has a vote, so she has to say something because she will have an impact whether I like it or not directly
well,
by the factor of
I
her
don't know
vote.
if there's a standard that you could say this about Democrats, about Republicans, about basically fucking like any like political institution whatsoever. I don't think it's something that organizations can say anything coherent about. Like
Well, yeah, I agree that there's
yeah,
other
it just
organizations
doesn't seem like a
that
meaningful sort of thing. It just seems kind of like a uh, shaking your
it's
fist
not
at the
meaningful to
guy.
say that the organization. Well, I think it's meaningful to say that an organization is so devoid of knowledge and like policy, like anything on policy, any idea about policy, that it's better that they just don't talk about an issue entirely. I mean, it's not just that isn't. I mean, I guess for Republicans that would be trans issues. I
No,
don't know if it's
I
a
don't.
bunch of
I have
different.
no idea what it means to say that the like DSA does not have knowledge. Like that is just that just doesn't make any sense to
They
me.
have
Like
they
I said,
have
because it seems
people
like you're
that have
talking about DSA
knowledge,
as though DSA
and their
is like
knowledge
a
built up to statements and policies and advice that they give to candidates, resource, like there are the people of DSA in leadership positions make up the institutional knowledge. Like institutions are just people with a bunch of paperwork.
exactly well exactly right. And then when you have a institution that is that like is very divided on a issue, like yes, I would say I guess that they if they're super divided on an issue, it doesn't make sense to put out any sort of messaging that is going to be sort of not representative of the institution itself. Then when we talk about the institution itself and whether or not like it has the ability to even like do that. It's like, yeah, whoever's putting out messaging that is taking a firm stance on something that there is no firm stance on within the organization, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Like outside of that, like I don't know what else it would mean.
Are you saying that like it's not a good idea, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to do it anyways?
Like if we say that like DSA should not put out messaging at all. If there is like active conflict about about the war in Ukraine, for example, that they shouldn't say anything at all because there isn't a consensus. They shouldn't make any claims about anything that doesn't have a consensus. Then it's like, okay, sure. And then, but you still end up in a position where you have the platform, the DSA platform that mentions Israel and says that they're anti-war and stuff like that, but it doesn't include Ukraine. And it's like, well,
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not
it is
really that
better to have a
it's not even really that
it's
we don't
better to
want them
have
to
a
just not say
gaping
anything. We
hole.
want them to
Hold
actually
on, Dylan. Let him finish real quick.
Yeah, it's
Start
not
back
that we
over.
want them to not say anything. We want them to actually come to a correct position. And when it comes to the messaging, then that's the messaging. It's not even effective to be able to put out messaging that you don't have an actual consensus on. Because even if you did, and even if you put out good pro Ukraine messaging, but you don't have that institutional consensus within the organization, then that's going to actually make you less effective politically as an organization. So, like the thing
Okay.
that actually matters is sort of getting to a resolution on this issue and getting consensus within DSA, which then takes fighting, and that people need to be fighting, and that's exactly what people need to be doing. But outside of this, I think the thing that sort of characterizes a lot of the sort of confusion here is that is this something that should be invested in general? Like, should the DSA be invested in to the point where it can come to a institutional consensus about this issue, or should the DSA basically be because they don't have a consistent position on this as a new organization with tons of things being worked out in the background? Is that because they don't have a stable position on this? Does that mean that the DSA should just be hand waved and stick to the Democratic Party? Or like I don't see how it relates back to whether or not the DSA as a political force is something that is I guess, good or a bad thing.
Okay, Dylan.
So I would just say DSA has done nothing but damage on the issue of Ukraine. They have never put out a statement that was good. They've never said anything of value really on the topic. So when we talk about what is applicable to the organization, because the people in leadership positions got together and agreed that this is what they should put out as the DSA consensus at the start of the war and at other major flashpoints that they felt that they should make statements on. And so my position isn't that wouldn't it be better if they came to a good consensus? Of course it would be better, but I think very little of their ability to be imaginative on how to work this into their worldview and how to have that type of complex view displayed to the public when we're in an age of sloppyism, and sloppyism is much easier than complex policy wonkery or trying to find out how to actually respect the national security sacrifices Ukrainians made at their own expense for our security when giving up atomic weapons. Something that has been an objective for the left, not only in this country, but the global left, nuclear nonproliferation for years. Ukraine's one of the few countries that gave it up, and there's like zero respect for it. There's zero. So it's not that I don't expect DSA to have debate. It's just if they're going to have shit debate and then put out shit press, it's better to not put out anything at all. Of course, it would be better if they said something good. It's just after 5 years, I don't have very high hopes and expectations. My position is not that people shouldn't join DSA or I'm very ambivalent now. Like my politics has gotten more cynical towards organizations like DSA since I've over the last 5 years, quite a lot. But if people want to go change it, that's good. It's just where it stands now, I expect very little of it.
So you're saying that you're generally jaded, but that you don't have any opinions on like the I guess the political structural uh, like uh, internal U.S. politics of it. It's just the you're upset about the inconsistencies on the Ukraine issue.
Well, yeah, I am upset that an organization that claims to be anti-war doesn't know how to deal with the largest, bloodiest war on the planet. That America was definitely involved in the processes that eventually led to it, and they don't even deny that. They just say that the best thing we should do is basically drop it like hotcakes when we talk about the statements that they've put out as an organization. And so, since they've done so much, I think, damage to their own just internal logical consistency, it'd be better for them to shut up or fix it. I don't think they're going to fix it, so it'd be better for them to shut up and wait for hopefully new membership and new
What do you mean
people
that
who
like
come
what do
in.
you mean by that? Like what characterizes the you don't think that they're going to fix it thing?
Well,
I
doesn't
just I
just real
they've
quick?
had
Dylan, if you're saying that you don't think that they should put anything out because you don't agree with their positions or you don't think that they're good positions, but Jordy, aren't you also saying that you don't think that they should be putting anything out unless there is a consensus within the organization?
Yeah, basically, yeah, and that's sort of the
So I
that's
mean,
sort of
you do
the
both
yeah,
kind of
that's sort of the
disagree they
issue here.
should shut the fuck up, then, right?
Well,
For
the
different
thing that
reasons, but
characterizes it is different here because it seems like Dylan it basically has a Dylan. It seems like Dylan is saying that is just admitting that he's jaded and resentful about DSA, and so therefore, um, that's just it. He's just okay. I don't trust you guys. I'm done. Um, whereas I'm trying to actually talk about like the politics behind it, what characterizes the development of DSA, what characterizes the democratic aspects of this, and whether or not that's something that should be invested in politically. That seems like that is not really a consideration because it seems Dylan's kind of like throwing his hands up about it.
if you
And then when
think
it comes
that they
to
shouldn't be putting out statements without some sort of consensus and they're consistently putting out statements anyways as an organization,
well,
would
the
that not
thing
make you
is that
lose
the thing
faith
is
in their ability to put out statements?
well, when it comes to the like the NPC, and if the NPC is putting out statements, then that is something that should be representative of um, what people actually believe generally within DSA. On some level of like soft consensus. Um, and then when it comes to the IC, and when it comes to other committees, it's like, well, I mean, technically, other committees are going to be able to say whatever they want, and I don't think that they should be able to. I think that there should be something done about the disproportionate influence of members in the IC. How that gets done, I'm not exactly sure what the best way forward for that is. But like the thing is that I would rather approach DSA as a by in the context of what it is, not what it looks like. It
Dylan,
seems
do
like
you
Dylan wants to
disagree
go
with
about it
what
in
it
the
is he's
context of what
saying
it
here?
looks like, not what it is.
Well, I think it looks like limp-wristed on Ukraine because that's what generally as an organization it is. Even for the people who have better positions, most of them they don't care about it enough to really like start a fight over it in the organization or do the good work to actually change it. There are a few people,
But how do
but
we
like
know this?
because we've seen how the organization has developed over the last 5 years, which has either been at its best silence or at its
So we're
worst
guessing.
yapping.
Yeah, so we're guessing then.
Well, we can only guess from the statements that they put out and I mean, we look at the
Yeah, if we can only
organization and we
guess, then
see
we can
that
only
they
guess.
say
But if we're going to be making like a hard claim about like what the majority of DSA believes, and then just saying, well, we can guess that the majority of DSA believes the things that are being put out by the IC, which has a disproportionate
I
influence
didn't
by
say that the majority
caucuses.
believes
And
it,
it's like,
but even if they don't, then there's nothing that's been done about it over the last 5 years. It's not been a big enough of an issue for anybody to stop the organization from either being terribly silent, which I agree is better than being bad and loud, or bad and loud. So, I mean, yes, I agree that there are a lot of people in DSA that are good people. I agree that there are a lot of people in DSA that probably have good positions on Ukraine and would like to see the organization change for the better. And I don't disagree about people, if they wanted to change the organization for the better and they're pro Ukraine and you're of that left leaning politics, that DSA actually maybe should be the organization that you join in order to be part of a wave that changes it for the better. But as it stands, it's not at that organization that is better. As it stands, at its best, it's silent about the largest war on the planet as an anti-war organization, which is going to create a jaded feeling in me because in and of itself, it's so hypocritical, it's so self-contradictory that it is going to make me put my hands up in the air. I haven't considered DSA membership since the Bernie primary in Nevada in 2020. So like, yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm talking about this from like a lovey, like I have a strong, close personal relationship with DSA and I know where all the ebbs and flows are going. But the way that the organization presents also affects the type of people that come into it. And when I talk to people who are progressively involved, pro-Ukraine, or like involved in what's going on over here, DSA is not an organization they talk about joining. DSA is not an organization that they really, if anything, like I'll sometime once in a while hear Progressive Victory if I hear anything, or I'll hear like some other like rinky-dink socialist group I've never heard of.
So yeah, well, I think that's sort of just I guess the wall then is sort of I think it's defined by what the DSA is versus what it looks like. If you say that like you know, you personally have a detachment from the political process as such, and that you have a detachment from, I guess, investing in what the DSA is politically in the United States, because you're disheartened by poor organization standards, for a very again sort of a like a new uh, this new baby organization that's like, you know, overflowing with people very rapidly. That yeah, sure, but like if it doesn't have any sort of, if it's not within the context of the political system itself and the democratic system in the United States, and it's sort of is that it's just like, you know, this gesture, and that's it. And so like, because when I watched your stream from the other day, and you were sort of ranting about the weakness of people like Daraliza to now I'm using your word, but or
Weakness and
Elisa.
cowardice, I believe it was
Yeah, the
weakness
weakness
and
and
cowardice.
cowardice, and you know that it's some pussy shit to try and have these positions of being anti-war, and the like the largest like war in history is happening, and there's all of these innocent people that are dying. There's ethnic cleansing. There's genocide that's happening, and you have people that are silent for whatever reason it might be, and there's no way to even tell. Like that is pussy shit, and that there needs to be pressure put on those people. Um, that made me stoked. I love that fucking language. I love um, you know, that made me want to, you know, join the DSA so that I can take that fight to them, because I think that the political force of DSA should be invested in, and it should be invested in correctly. And the only way that that's going to happen is if people who have the that are socialists have this more nuanced and meaningful view, go in there and fight it. You know, that is my position. And that
I
if the difference between this my position and your position is that you are simply jaded, then that's sort of it. We're just debating about whether or not you deserve to be jaded.
Well, the answer to that's obviously I deserve to be jaded. But when it comes to Tom, when Tom asked me to be in this debate, I specifically said my position isn't that I'm against DSA. I said I'm against DSA leadership and like black heart of the IC. Something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, but that was what I said. Is that that's my position. If you want me for that, then I'll do it. And I got on, and then that's been my position. It's hard for me personally, in my position, to join an organization that doesn't have a clear position on this, right? Like just for myself, like selfishly to some degree, right? Outside of like
No,
just
well, I get
any,
it. Like you're there, you
but
know, like you see
yeah, of
it. Like
course.
you don't get to, you know, you don't get to have the luxury of not seeing it.
What gets me is when you say like baby organization. I
Hmm.
agree that they're a young organization, and like socialism in the United States, in the way it's being made now, this is different. We haven't had anything like this since Debs, and Debs has been gone for a bit. So I understand that there's going to be bumpiness, there's going to be disagreement about everything from foreign policy to rent control to like all these different stuff. I agree with that, uh, but it's one thing for it to be young and accepting that, and another thing to miss the moment. And this is a really important moment. This moment right now, we don't know, like it could be in 4 years that the answer is not DSA, the answer is some new group, the answer is some new idea, because they missed the moment. Like it's not like necessarily that political movements are made just by hard work. Political movements' hard work can be stolen under them by the waves of history. You're on a little raft. I love Mark Twain's old talk about how you lead a country, but it's the same thing with the movement. You put a raft on the river, and the best you can do is try to dodge the rocks and logs and try to guide yourself to the best of your imagination. And if DSA doesn't meet the moment that is right now, then we don't know that there's going to be another moment like right now again. There'll be future moments. Maybe they'll be able to be as politically effective as them as possible. But in this moment, if they can't solve this internal contradiction, I think that could really it could hurt the organization. I think it's part of the reason
Well,
why.
sorry, the internal contradiction is characterized by the fact that there's like a disagreement and active debate, and we're talking about a democratic organization.
I think that if an
So, like,
organization
democracy is inefficient, by the way. Like, if we talk about efficiency insofar as like getting things done in a a short amount of time, democracy is but by that definition inefficient. But we don't support democracy because
okay,
it's
Hillary.
efficient.
In
We-
comparison to
Hillary.
authoritarianism.
I
it's
under,
inefficient.
yes, we all wait for the great reform, Hillary. But also, some things are
This
crises.
is just what
Like
democracy
this,
is.
this
is
something.
what we
War is a
discuss.
crisis, and this has been going on
Mhm.
for 5 years. And yeah, they can be slow. They don't need to be decrepit. They don't need to take the like this. This isn't the turtle in the hair, and they need to like prove that they can eventually get there. No, it's the sooner they have a position on this that is consistent, the better. I don't think we disagree about that. And I
Sure,
don't
also
think
we should
we
remember
might
that they
disagree
don't have
about.
institutional power insofar as making it of like being responsible for the decision that's made on this.
They have to
Insofar
show
as
that
the
they can
Democrats
hold
and Republicans.
that once they have institutional power, they'll be responsible with it. For example, in
Well,
Congress
again,
right
all the
now,
people that were endorsed by DSA are people that have supported Ukraine and it's supported funding for Ukraine.
well, there's some problems with that right now, but we can get into that detail right now. There's only one person in Congress that voted against this Ukraine Support Act, which is a very small bill for sanctions on Russian,
Sure.
whatever. It's a very small bill. You get the idea. It was Ilhan. Of all the people in the Democratic Party, she was the only one that voted against it. And when she gave her justification, she said
who would
she
be a
didn't want to
minority of the
wage.
people that were endorsed by DSA?
Yes, she would be a minority, but that's Ilhan. Cori Bush, who was just endorsed by DSA, is also against sanctioning the Russians. Then you talk about Doc. Then you talk about Claire Valdez. Now that's 4 people. Then, and I gotta say, I've engaged with some other campaigns.
Wait,
Thankfully,
sorry, there was no positive position from these two.
Claire Valdez's and Doc's position, I'm pretty confident is against Ukraine aid, and I can justify that if you want. But I think that the best
you can justify there is no affirmative position on it. That you would agree to that.
There's no affirmative. Well, from Doc there is. From Claire Valdez, it's a lot more.
What was Doc's affirmative position?
No military aid to any country.
Specifically in reference to the blurb about Israel.
Is Israel any country or one country?
It's not about whether Israel is any country or one country. This is about whether or not this is an affirmative position on Ukraine.
It is.
Yeah, and you're talking about.
It is an affirmative position. I mean, look.
We can read it if you want to. We can talk about whether or not this reads as an affirmative.
Look, I'm like, these aren't my friends. So I like she says no country should get military aid, and then she goes into a spiel about Israel as an example as to why we shouldn't give military aid. Now, Israel might have been the main country that motivated that position, but in February she changed the website. And February is also the same time when Mondami, Bernie, like all these other big campaigns are engaging to get that endorsement. And so
let's take a look at what it was. Then.
But we can read the full thing. But let me ask you, but if she changed, well, let me ask, if she changed it, she didn't change it to be nicer to Israel.
Why would it be?
Why would she change it?
What's your point?
If she's changed it from military aid to any country, and then the new version only really talks about Israel aid, the reason it would be changed is because somebody read military aid to any country and probably said, what do you mean any country? Somebody probably
Wait, so then why wouldn't the read be that it would? Why wouldn't the read be that it was that it was imprecise and ineffective? That maybe she was talking about Israel, and they were like, okay, but this kind of reads as like what if you wanted to send I don't know, aid to
well, that means they took an affirmative position. Well, that means they took an affirmative position against military aid. Well, that would mean they took, in technical language, they took an affirmative position against military aid to any country. Then got rid of that position for either the reason you gave or any other reason, and then when asked to clarify by news outlets, avoided any clarification. So she had a position, then the position's gone, and in the meantime, every time she's asked about Ukraine aid, she purposefully dodges the question and like magistry, she's like a fucking ballerina out
What's
there,
the other?
right?
Well, I read the interview that she had before, where she was asked in relation to her tweet, what she meant by her tweet and if she supports a military aid to Ukraine, and which she
Yeah, New York Times
responded with
editorial
the
board.
context for. Responded with the context of what she believed she meant back then when she wrote that, and then you sort of gave a statement saying that that Ukraine is the victim of the Russian invasion or something like that, and that they are in a war for their sovereignty, right? Which didn't, yes, it didn't answer the question, but if I were to try and read into that, that it meant that she was specifically avoiding in that, I don't fucking know.
Well,
She
they,
also
they
read,
seem
like,
to,
come
even the
on.
uttering and
DSA
what
seems.
do you mean? Come on, you tell me
Come
for a
on.
fact that that is exactly what she meant. You tell me for a fact
She was
that you were.
definitely. I can tell you for a fact that she definitely was dodging the question. Yes, I mean it was a very clear question. I mean we
Okay, I
can
don't want
read
to
it
get
if we
defensive.
want,
You
but
can
it was
say that she
very
didn't
direct.
answer the question.
What? Yes or
If
no? Do
she's
you
dodging
believe
it,
in
then
military
you
aid?
were going to
Then
be
she
reading
doesn't
into it that
answer
she is
at all.
specifically.
No,
Listen,
I
you can say
read
that that's
into
your
what was on her
interpretation. I'm
website.
just trying to be
I
accurate
read
about
the
what the read
exact
is.
words in their technical meaning that were on her website,
This is what I mean is
and
that
then
if
her
we start
and then her obvious
gassing up
dodginess.
interpretations and saying that like we have enough here with these individual
I mean, she
situations
cut
to
off.
say that like
She
the
turned
motivation
away
for all of this is because
phone
she's
banking
secretly in
opportunities
favor
over
of.
Ukraine,
Okay, hold on.
right?
What? So real quick. So you both agree that she never made an explicit statement about Ukraine, but
About you, about
point,
all
you're
yes.
saying
countries, yes, but not
yes, but
Ukraine
yours.
specifically. No.
Well, but does it necessarily mean that just because she made this statement, because it is common that like somebody will make a broad statement so that they don't alienate anybody, and they'll, just a very political like avoidant statement so that they don't alienate anybody, but it doesn't necessarily give you an indication of one position or the other. But you feel like it is one, you do have indication of one position or the other, right?
Look, if it was
Yes.
just she had this clear position on her website and then she took it off and there was nothing else, then I would be extremely suspect. But I mean, I would be like, look, it said this in clear text, but I mean, she's been quiet, so who knows? But the fact that
It's
she
still
not
characterized
only
by reading into it.
dodges every questions and then turns away progressive support because they want to ask her position on Ukraine, and she ghosts these organizations over the question of Ukraine. It gets to the point where it's just fucking weird. It's like
Okay,
Ukraine
well,
scares her.
we are literally pointing to a absence of information and vagueness as a necessary malicious intent,
Would
and
we
reading that
accept
into
like
each
this from
one of
any
them and
other
then stacking
candidate?
them on top of each other and then saying that this is okay, this is what her actual position is.
I'm just not being naive.
No, you're doing mind reading here, and you're trying to convince us
I'm
that
not doing mind reading.
you are doing
I
mind
said
reading.
whether
You are literally
excusing what
saying by the
was
absence
policy
of
on her
information that
website as, oh,
we
she
can
was just
justify
Hold
being
my
on.
too
position.
broad.
Hold on.
And then
Let Dylan
every
finish.
single
Go
time
ahead.
she dodges, you say, well, we don't know she was dodging that clear, direct question that she didn't answer. I'm sure
No,
she turned away support
we're
because
literally saying by
Beefy,
the
was
absence of
stinky or
information, when we
something.
look at the when we look what was actually on the website, when we're looking at the entire thing was written about the like three like blurbs of it, were completely about how unjustified it is to be profiting off of genocide and giving weapons to Israel and stuff like that. And then at the very beginning of that section on Israel, she's talking about the fact that the United States is sending the like military complexes invested in wars overseas, shit like that. Having some like vague statement like that, and then saying that okay, this must mean that she has this position on Ukraine. It doesn't strike me as that. It strikes me as someone who was literally just not even thinking about Ukraine. If I was going to guess what it was that. And then when there was any sort of question about like being specific about what she actually meant, she changed it to be more specific and more in line with what your criticism probably would be, is that you want to be specific and you want to be clear. And then, but her doing that is now being characterized as she scrubbed it from the website so that we could never see what she actually meant. And she wants people to think that she has a totally different position. that's reading into it so many fucking layers that when you start stacking these on top of each other, it starts you start to really like sort of like you know you start to mind read. Yeah.
I really don't think we should give these suits any slack, right? Like if
No,
somebody
listen, when
says
it comes to
something,
politics, yeah,
well,
I don't think that you should. I think that you should fight your fights and talk your shit for sure. Yeah, yeah. Politically, yes. Yeah. But when we talk about what we actually know, when we talk about what we and we have positions on this, we're gonna be talking about what we actually
I
know.
mean, look, to me, she
We're
could
not
be
gonna
Mitch
be trying to
McConnell.
lead
Like
people to an
I
interpretation that
don't view
isn't
them
accurate.
Okay.
like
Yeah, Dylan,
it's
go
all
ahead.
the same. It's all the same sliminess to me. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Doc, like it's all one big rainbow of all these people want to rule over. They all want to be politicians. And to be in power and to get power, you got to play a certain game. You got to not piss off enough people that they'll actually click your name when you get in there. And in the Democratic
I agree
Party,
with that,
being a
but I don't use
well,
that
let me.
to
Well, I
justify
didn't.
naive
Well, let
interpretation
me.
of
I
politics.
gotta finish my. I gotta finish the sentence
I'm
though.
sorry, I'm sorry.
And so, 95% of Democrats support Ukraine. Like an over. It's like fucking Assad margins. Like, not only do they support Ukraine because obviously you should support Ukraine, but they also think like Donald Trump was anointed by Vladimir Putin due to like a decade of scandal, right? So these things have made it so in the Democratic Party, whether or not that's true, that's what wine moms in this country believe, right? And so that has made it so if you are in any way friendly with Putin, friendly with the Russians, or against the Ukrainians, you're Putin's bitch. That's the way it is in the Democratic Party. I like it that way. I would like to keep it that way. I'll keep my blue one on. Thank you very much. But I think that this is my honest interpretation. This is the mind reading part. The rest of it past this won't be mind reading. My mind
Okay.
reading is she saw that she had the opinions that she expressed about, the Russians getting bullied, in the eve of the invasion. Her views might have changed slightly since then, but she doesn't want to endorse military weapons. And so she simply created a platform that she thought, would get her to be able to, define her values clearly. Then, when the process started of getting, going through the big endorsements, somebody said something and they said, you know what, that is maybe leaving Ukraine on the table. And I don't want to get critique. I don't want to get that angle. This is going to be a tight race. Let's change the website. We don't have to clarify anything. And if you change the website and you don't clarify anything, that's scrubbing. You can say it's good scrubbing, bad scrubbing, or whatever you want to say. But if you have a statement of policy on your website, then get rid of it and then don't explain it, even when the press asks you directly about it. That's scrubbing, right?
Sorry,
Now, when
first
it
off,
comes to
we're conflating a little bit here. Well, first off, I have a totally different read on the tweet that's being referenced here in the sort of bullying quote. And I
Can we
don't
do
think
it?
that
Can
what
somebody
she
do
said
me a
was
favor?
actually
Can
that
we pull it
justified.
up so that we know exactly what it is that we're talking about? Because
Oh, we
you
can quote
two
it
seem to have
verbatim,
some
right?
context
Yeah,
that
you
we're
can pull it
not.
up if you want to for
you should
viewers.
go to Track Ukraine on Twitter, which actually has the exact source twink at Track Ukraine on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm looking for, honestly. If I was asking if one of you guys could pull it up because you two seem to
Sure,
know
I
what
can
it is
pull
that
it
we're
up.
talking about here, but I don't know that the audience does.
Oh yeah, is there like more context to the tweet? Like it's the one where that one person says, like, why is the United States involved in this war with Ukraine and Russia? Like, what does the United States have to do with it? And then she said that the United States wants to only gives a shit about bullying Russia.
Well, yeah, that is the tweet that's being talked about in question. Yeah, because the
Yeah,
Cold
was there
War
more
ended and
context
we've
to it?
been
I
bullying
didn't know
Russia
if you were
ever.
referencing
Here
that
it
there was.
is. It says because the Cold War. Yeah, I can send it to you, Tom, if you want it. Because the Cold
Okay.
War ended and we've been bullying Russia ever since. Also, war is lucrative for these sociopaths. That we've
Yeah,
been
is
bullying
that a
Russia since the
pro-Russia
end of the Cold
position?
War. Yeah, it is.
Why?
We haven't been bullying Russia since the end of the Cold War. It's ridiculous. We've been very lenient.
Well, we can say whether or not it's accurate. I guess you could say since the Cold War, we've been I guess you could say that U.S. foreign policy
George
is
Bush said he
trusting
looked
a
into Putin's
Russian hegemonic
eyes and he
leader, but
saw
like
he was a good man.
what?
Like George Bush said he looked into Putin's eyes and said he saw he was a good man, so
Yeah,
everything's
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. No,
And then he
we
invaded
can talk about whether or
Georgia.
not Yeah, we can talk about how accurate it is, but my interpretation of this is literally saying that that the United States doesn't give a shit about Ukraine and that their only interest is fucking over Russia, and that doesn't read to me as a
Well, no,
necessarily
that
anti-Ukraine
I've heard that a
position.
million times. The idea that we've bullied them is what, because that is the Russia is the victim. They're the one being aggressed upon. They're the
Wasn't
one
Obama
being boxed
considering
into a
putting them into
corner.
NATO?
There was a lot of discussion about Russian membership in NATO. It never ended up panning through because they had a very different
Well,
idea of what the organization should
I
be.
figured
But
that
yeah,
Russia was trying to get into NATO, or basically, I guess specifically with Putin, trying to get into NATO just for the political narrative of knowing he would get denied and then say, "Ah, see, I told you, NATO
well,
is
he wouldn't even fill out an
anti."
application. One, he wouldn't go through the actual application process, and then two, in 2014 they invaded Ukraine. So
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of
So,
ended
Georgia
that.
was also a problem.
Oh, Georgia as well. Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, I have a different interpretation of the tweet. My confidence, I would probably rate it at 60%. You know, so like I'm not saying that there isn't a reality where like in this, that she was or is of the mindset that that the war was started ultimately by NATO expansionism or some shit. I don't know. But as far as that tweet, it literally just seems almost verbatim to what some of my early views on the war in Ukraine was in the first place. Um, Especially at that time period, would I have said something
Okay,
different?
but if I came to you and I said, "Do you support military aid to Ukraine?"
Yeah. Well, I would
Do
say
you?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, yeah.
Okay, well that was very easy, wasn't it?
But oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the price if her position is changed? All it would take is one
But
YES. It would take like the simplest.
if somebody said on top of that, or if somebody said alongside that, if like, oh yeah, I was curious about your like whether or not you support aid to Ukraine or whatever, because we saw this tweet and this tweet was saying this thing, and people are saying that this was something that was in regard to like supporting Russia or trying to make Russia the victim or whatever. I could totally see myself like missing the question of the aid and just trying to like fix the fucking. It's like no. Okay, but back then I meant something totally different. I don't know. Like let's say it was a different type. Whatever. Um, I would not discount that because also she's not a good public speaker. To be honest, or she's
No.
not good at interviews at all. She gets
Well,
really
what do
fucking
you
angry
think
and nervous.
the point of like
Meeting.
avoiding the question was in the first place? Like earlier, I gave the explanation that it could be that she didn't want to split up like the people within the DSA who would disagree
Oh,
with her.
yeah, I think
Like
that
what
there's
is
I think my interpretation, or like my if I were to guess, I would guess that she is aware of the influence in the IC, what the debates are internally in the DSA, and that that on the campaign, saying that while also backing the having this pretty general like a DSA platform position of anti-war, and knowing what the exact things that you're running on is, and then being asked specifically about that and understanding that that could cause sort of infighting within DSA or having pressure within DSA to not support you as much, or people that are maybe people that she knows or whatever, or that she doesn't even know that much, and she doesn't want to end up in a situation where she is just like on a whim justifying further investment into like Raytheon or some shit because she doesn't know what the actual thing is. I think that like all of these things could be in the background of it. Whether or not she's hiding some like actual clear like position of not wanting to fund Ukraine for particular reasons, I don't think that that's there. I think the thing that you see when you look at it, especially with that tweet, I think that tweet just kind of like exemplifies it. And plus the fact that she's never really talked about it that much more is that it seemed like the strongest negative interpretation I could have, not the steel man, is that she is one of the many lefties who, especially at the beginning of the war, who defaulted to the Mearsheimer, Chomsky, Hedges interpretation or dogmatic sort of arguments about the war. I just or heard somebody else paraphrasing one of those people, just repeated it in some sort of way that is largely void of any knowledge or whatever. It's just sort of lefty virtue signaling on Twitter, which is what Twitter is for. And that she just doesn't know that much.
I don't
That is about.
disagree. Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
I
It's
don't
but
want to
like,
interrupt.
yeah, I just wanted to. The point that I'm getting at is that I think even with a negative interpretation, I think the most realistic option, not to steelman her at all. Most realistic situation is that she is bad at interviews, bad at speaking, and there's pressure in the background from a active and pretty like you know hostile debate back and forth within DSA that she didn't want to jeopardize, while also being targeted by right wing and left wing media about inconsistencies, hypocrisies, etc. It just seemed like if you were going to make that decision in like a split second of time, I could understand that as being a reason to avoid it if there was avoidance.
So I think we can bring this all the way back to our original topic if I use the right path here.
Cool.
I don't disagree that she was unclear and that she never had a 100% like, here is my Ukraine policy. I am putting this out there. I do agree that she is not a good public speaker. I disagree with the idea that she's terrible at interviews, particularly actually, because I think the one that people talk about, like that Dominican interview where she got like yelled at about, like she was
She's
just being
not terrible.
shit.
It
She
reads
was being
bad though.
yeah, it does read bad, like any walkout reads bad. But in that particular instance, if you actually sat down and watched it, she was being treated like shit, and
She
it wasn't a
was.
fair interview.
It was. They were
Oh,
screaming
because
and yelling
okay,
at
that
her.
makes sense.
It was
I
very
only read
rude.
that one section as well. But that
Yeah,
that
and
kind of adds to my point then, right?
well, I mean, I don't know if it really. I still agree that she's a bad public speaker. I agree that that might add to what you're trying to like
No, I
the
mean the point
idea.
of like being anxious about the like if she was in a
Yeah, yeah,
hostile
but
interview.
I disagree. I disagree for a totally different reason. I
Okay.
disagree because uh, one of the new things I'm saying is there's nothing more dangerous than a Marxist who hasn't read enough Marx, right? There's never been an issue. There's never been an issue on the left with uneducated people talking like they're educated. In fact, the original tweet that we were talking about is a good example of that, where somebody posts on Twitter, "What's going on with Crane?" And it's not like, "Hey Darla, hey Dak, tell me specifically what's going." No, she was like, I'll tell you what's going on." She goes there and she posts it, and that's not just a left wing tendency. That's a tendency of people who think they know a little. I mean, a lot after they learn very little. It's that curve. I forget what they call it, but you know the curve.
Dunning-Kruger or
And
whatever.
so, yeah, Dunning-Kruger. So it could be a possibility that she went through some like Dunning-Kruger effect, but through campaigning, she is supposed to be able to build out like a platform and figure these issues out.
Hmm.
And she never went out there besides the one statement that could be interpreted as a position on Ukraine, which is no military aid to any country. Ukraine is a country. And specifically, the press asked at the time, is this in reference to you? Like, they're asking specifically the way I'm talking about it. It's not like, this nobody else has had this idea until me. And she, at that point, didn't answer those questions. She didn't clarify the change of the website. And then after the change of the website,
But was she
you
asked about the
have
change of the website?
yeah, she was, and she didn't give an answer. I
Oh,
can
is
send
that
you
in
the
a different?
article about it. Yeah, I
Yeah, could
think
you? I'm
it
just curious.
was it to be fair, you could say it was like a right wing like it's like Slog magazine or something. I think it was the Post or something.
Mhm.
But at the and maybe that's why there was no reaction because you don't want to respond to the Post. But then there's a certain layer of I feel like denial I'm putting myself in, where I see early framing of Russia as a victim at the start of the invasion, speaking very confidently about something that at best she doesn't know much. If she did know a lot about it, and she was saying it's worse. So we're going to assume for the best for this conversation to work that she was just speaking uneducated. And then after that, ever since then, she has at every opportunity either not answered direct questions on Ukraine or the one thing that could be considered anything related to policy on her website on Ukraine was changed with no like direct comment. And the only activism related to the campaign that had to do with Ukraine, it had and people I don't care what people think of PV, their ask was very simple. It wasn't even, "Hey, tell us like you must have this position." It was, "What do you believe?" And then nothing. absolutely no contact. And as an organization, and this is why I stand by Track Ukraine's grading, we have to give voters a tool that they can use to determine on this issue, and people need to be felt accountable. And she didn't feel any accountability that she had to answer this question. She didn't feel that it was necessary for voters to know if she had any idea of what to do about the largest war on the planet as an anti-war candidate. And as an organization to Track Ukraine, we had to grade that somehow. And so we used every single piece of evidence we could gather to come to the determination that we did. And once we put the determination out there, we were never contradicted by anybody in the campaign, related to the campaign staff, or the candidate themselves, despite the fact that there was a lot of attention brought to it. A lot, actually. I was surprised by the amount of attention our grading got on that, which did make other candidates more cooperative, which I am thankful for her for. But at the end of the day, like, I stand by that grading. And if it is true what you're saying about a DSA tanky split, that is a determination, and which is one thing we thought about is like, is it the clique around her? She doesn't want to scare off some campaign staff, or, it could be any of these things. This comes back to my issue with DSA, is that I would want people in there to look at these candidates before they get out there and say, hey, if you're going to be anti-war, maybe you should have a position on this. So I agree that people should be in there.
The alternative
this
here
only
is that DSA becomes more dogmatic. That would be the alternative, though.
Yes, the alternative is for it to become more dogmatic. And if it does become more dogmatic, then you have no solution but to like literally start
You
again.
and the tankies agree
Because
on
I don't know if you agree with me, but you need to develop an American socialism. If you're going to develop socialism in the country, it has to be American socialism, and it cannot be a campus socialism. It has to be something that appeals to the values that Americans hold and share, and somehow bring people on one side of the continent and the other side of the continent together. Right? That's why you can't have an authoritarian.
I would want it to be democratic.
Yeah, of course, democratic, non-authoritarian. You wouldn't want to be like socialism without freedom of expression, or socialism without freedom of the press, or socialism but we take your guns away. Socialism but we, there's certain things you would have to adapt this for the United States. And campism is one thing you cannot. We cannot just put like a Stalin outfit on an American leader and think everyone will say based. That's not gonna. I don't think that's gonna work.
Absurd. In the campus sort of caucuses, in the members in DSA that are more campus are a really big problem politically. Like, they should be, in a democratic sense, be disempowered. And people like you talking shit about you should be talking shit louder. I'm that's democracy to me, is fighting. And I think that people should fight. I think that people should fight for what's effective, and I think that the campus are ineffective, and I think that they should be fought.
Let me throw out there. Let me have some unity here, because I feel like a lot of times we're like 90% agreeing with each other, but like
No,
there's
we
like
are,
10% there where Let me find some agreement here. I am not hostile to DSA. There's like specific things, like I remember when Mondami said the warmth of the collective, and there was something in my soul that went right. There was something in my Americanness that was like, I don't like that, like I don't know, like a cat seeing a cucumber or something. But like, broadly speaking, we need a war on poverty. We need universal health care. We need to house every person. Like, there's certain things that there's a lack of bold vision from Democrats, to the point where like I can roll my eyes at any of the LARPiness that I could see. I'll be like, I don't know if we need to necessarily put a message in the way that they want to. But at the end of the day, I agree that this pressure is a positive force at the bare minimum on the Democratic Party. And so this is something I agree, but they will compromise themselves if the Democrats can just look at them and be like, come on, wine mom, that's just a Putin fanatic. She doesn't care about, she doesn't care about healthcare or whatever. Fucking shut up about that. They're Putin's bitch. This is something that will drag, I think, DSA down. And so, as much as I've gotten like a lot of negative reaction from some DSA people, because it's a lot of DSA candidates we're talking about specifically when it comes to the Democratic Party, to me, it's people rejecting medicine. To me, it's either you drop the weight or you drowned, because it's not going to work, number one, in the Democratic Party, and it's definitely not going to work if a DSA candidate ever actually goes into general election for president. Or, oh my gosh, could you imagine something like that? That'd be wild. Bernie
Yeah,
was the
right.
last one, but it would be good.
Yeah. I think we do have a lot of agreement. I think the one of the issues here is because you said that that these that suits shouldn't be trusted because they're part of the because at the end of the day they have to play the game. You're also kind of saying that they should play the game as well, um, which
Well, I'm not arguing against like you can't get angry at a cat for meowing or a cow for mooing or a politician for being a politician. But I'm talking about this as an individual, as a member of the citizenry. I understand their purpose. I understand how they have to operate, and that's why you shouldn't trust them because I understand how the system works.
yeah. Well, I think we largely agree. I think we probably shouldn't beat it to death. Uh, I think we largely agree. I guess about like Hmm. the direction that like insofar as the direction that the DSA ought to go, and the fights that need to be fought. I think we agree on those, which I think is the most important. I just also think people that believe in the type of shit that you believe in when it comes to Ukraine, um, they should consider joining DSA so that they can fight these fucking these campus tanky fucking losers.
Dylan?
I mean, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with
Yes.
people joining DSA, but I also, in order for those people to actually both have a chance of winning the fight and knowing when to move on, they also have to be willing to like look around when the ship is sinking or when it's too damaged, because DSA has to face the fact that if they don't reform, like eventually another organization will come and try to take that mantle. Another
Yeah, but
organization will
Dylan,
come.
why aren't you joining DSA to affect that change? Like, why wouldn't you join the DSA if you largely
There's no
agree with
DSA
them,
chapter in Kiev, as far as I'm aware. But maybe I should start it. I don't know.
there you go. I mean, dude, what better way to affect the
Oh,
DSA than
there's
to have a
the
chapter
international correspondence shit,
in
right?
International what? Sorry, I have bad
Like,
hearing.
yeah, the sorry,
international
doesn't the
correspondence? You said.
international committee, don't they like aren't they also tasked with communicating and coordinating with people in other countries?
Maybe I don't know if I don't know if I should start with the international committee. I don't know if that's the where I should. I'm like we should get rid of this.
I don't
Hello,
even know.
international
I don't even know
committee.
how you would go about trying to join it. I'm still trying to figure out the structure.
I
But
mean, I
listen,
know
I'll
there's
do my
Prince
best.
George's
I'll do my
County
best to try
DSA
and get in there.
back in my home county, and I get their emails actually. I do get the Prince George's County DSA emails, so I've thought about it, but I mean, I've focused on other political activism, and uh, I just don't know how, because I'd be very loud. I just maybe it'd go well, maybe it would go bad, but
That's
I'm
like
just focusing on what I
exactly
know
what
I can
needs to
control
happen.
for now.
Well, I mean, tankies are loud. That's why. That's why they. It's because everyone else is so fucking timid that's why you end up getting these fucking like these social capitalists that just they're really loud and they use fucking revolutionary language and they're larping as Che Guevara and shit like that. End up getting because they're confident and loud. People are like, oh, they must know what they're
Lots
talking
of
about.
points of personal privilege.
Yeah, fuck. I forgot I was supposed to say that before all my points, but yeah.
I did it yesterday a couple of times during the debate. So Jordy, are you part of any DSH? I'm assuming. I think you're from Portland. They've got to have like 50 there, right? No.
Well, there's a Portland chapter, and I think the largest caucus is the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. And I am now a member of DSA. And then
Okay.
I don't know about joining any caucuses or anything like that, but no, literally, I wasn't lying.
You're saying you're not part of like a chapter.
When I watched Dylan's stream yesterday, and I started ranting about like, you know what, people need to be talking this kind of shit like in DSA. I was like, oh shit, yeah. And then I joined DSA that night.
Did
It's
you
like, all right.
really?
Yeah. Got my card in the
Wow.
mail.
So everybody at home know that Azov recruited him into DSA. Put that.
So
put that on
what
the
is the
paperwork.
point though? What is the point of joining the DSA instead of just like trying to pressure the Democrat Party at large. Like, why would one join the DSA in order to do these things?
Well, for institutional change, like holistically. Yeah, it's a socialist Democrats are not a socialist platform. Like that is Democrats are.
Oh, because okay, so if you're a socialist and you want, so I mean, well, then wouldn't that
okay?
be?
Then I'll add on top of it that one should be a socialist as well. Like,
okay, so Dylan, are you a socialist?
yes,
No comment.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yes, I'm a socialist.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I was raised by a nom vet. It's like
That means we get to
here's how I
interpret that
put it.
how we want.
Yeah, you can interpret that how you want. No, I'm a social democrat. I was maybe more to the left when I was a bit younger, but just over the last 5 years, like honestly, I
There's social
think
Democrats in DSA.
I heard that
yeah, there were
being
tons of
gay
social
turns you
democrats in
into a
DSA.
socialist.
I don't think I wouldn't be welcome. Some people would say social democrat, social democracy and socialism is old story tradition.
You'd be
Yes,
not welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be welcome. It's just I don't know if you consider social democrat socialist, then yes. If you don't consider it a social democrat socialist, then no. I mean, if the idea that I've specifically like signed up to Marxist theory, not really, no.
I mean, for me, and a lot of socialists don't agree with this, but like for me, the things that a Marxist would do that is politically effective is going to look like almost identical to what a social democrat would do that is politically effective. And so like the distinction to me doesn't really fucking matter. That's my view. Like if it's about putting more power into investing more power in people, then that's the only thing that I care about. I don't give a fuck about like people's.
But the systemic change is what you're saying is important. If the SOCDEM doesn't want that systemic change, like they want more social programs,
but the thing is
but
that
they don't want the incrementalism.
Well, no. Like most of the Marxists are like are going to be approaching this through a lens of incrementalism, and I mean, look what the DSA is doing.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
they wouldn't want the incrementalism, so they would want like up into a point, but still like largely capitalism. Whereas they wouldn't want to like be taking over large corporations, which is one of DSA's like major platform
99% of people don't know what the fuck capitalism is. 99% of people don't know what any of these words mean whatsoever, and people's political.
They would be against taking over large corporations.
It doesn't matter to me what someone defines as capitalist or socialist or anything like that, because capitalism.
Well, that's why I'm being specific.
Definition for the relationship between I
agree.
Like complex market relations and commodity consumption and production or whatever.
I agree, but that's why I'm being more specific to say that they would be against like taking over large corporations. Then forget socialism or capitalism. Like most SOCDEMs, I think would be against like.
If we get to the point where we're talking about nationalizing like these electric companies and shit like that, and then there's SOCDEMs that are fighting about it, then I will fight about it with them. But at the end of the day, most people that are SOCDEMs are motivated by the fact that they want to be able to have more consent in what happens in their world around them, and they don't want people to be suffering because of market incentive. Like that value is kind of there with social democrats, so I don't really care about those distinctions. I'm not really one for the utopian or everyone has a different flag and a different pin for their flavor of socialism. I think all that shit's cringe. I just want to be politically effective, and I feel like I have a decent understanding of the market to know that what's in my best interest is going to be increasing democratic power with people, even within industries. That's just my position.
Pro-worker, pro-gun, pro-freedom.
True. Facts.
Well, Dylan, I heard that being gay makes you into a socialist, and you already look like a guy who keeps a snake, so I think that you would fit in pretty well.
I maybe you know what? I haven't thought about that. I did kiss a boy, and so I have to join. It is a rule.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Yep. I don't know if I can make up any other disagreements here yet.
All right. Well, I Appreciate you guys coming on. And Dylan,
Yeah, it
I
was good
don't
talking to
again,
you.
I
It was
don't
good
think
to be able to shoot the shit about this. I'm probably still gonna watch the debate because I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if it's unless it's basically just the same shit that we just talked about. But
it's not really because obviously I think soy pill's coming from a fairly different lens, so it's like tangentially related, but they go down very different paths of argumentation. So you might end up wanting to have another conversation with soy pill as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was good talking to you, Dylan.
Do you guys want
talking to
to
you
give
too.
like a closing statement real quick then? Jordy, you want to go first?
Um, uh, democracy is probably the most important thing to invest in the United States right now, while we're dealing with a consolidation of power in the executive and explicit and aggressive attempts to derail democratic institutions in a way that the Democrats have also proven to be incapable of pushing back against effectively. And so by that, I think it's really important to not only help make up the faults that the Democrats have by missing a large amount of their voter base, by energizing people into something that feels meaningful and people are fighting for, that you'll see with DSA. I think that fills up the gap that is necessary to fill in order to push back against Republicans and or the fascists, if you will. And I think that's really important. And so whether it's being in favor of just beating Republicans or whether it be in favor of, trying to build a long-term project of democratic power, it's for both reasons important to join DSA and also, fight the fight inside of DSA so that we can have some sort of alternative and not have to be at the mercy of lobbying groups and, you know, status quo institutional interests. But fuck the campus, fuck the tankies, and we should give Ukraine a nuke. And yeah, I'm on every single platform, Jordy Lybeck or Lybeck.io for the website, which has all of them. So hang
Nice.
out there, and if you think that I'm full of shit or you want to fight me about something, that's where you would go.
Yeah, used to be Kid Not Kin. Now Jordy
It used to
Lybeck.
be, yeah, yeah.
If you YouTube Kid Not Kin though, it still pulls him up. So there you go. All right, appreciate it. And Dylan Burns.
Why not Kid Knock? Why the change?
I got pretty involved with anti-ICE activism shit in Portland, and a lot of like I had a bunch of interviews and like documentary appearances under my name, and then it just I don't know, it started to feel weird to have like a gamer tag in
This is
association
literally
with
what we
it.
were talking about yesterday when we were talking about the fact that you used to be Kid Not Kin, now you're Jordy Lybeck. We were saying I was like, I feel weird like introducing myself as Tomfoolery, and I feel like I would much rather just call myself Tom Pinion instead of Tomfoolery. But yeah,
Yeah, so
I
it was
skipped the whole
basically that.
thing.
It
Dylan
makes it
Burns
easier.
TV, straight to the
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dox yourself from the
it makes it
beginning.
easier, I think, long term for people to, I guess, figure out what I'm about, learn about, activism that I've done against ICE, and it doesn't split everything up, and then it doesn't have to associate it with a gamer tag and shit like that, basically.
All right, and then yeah, Dylan, go ahead.
Sure. So I won't try to be too wordy. It is really important for an organization that is riding the upswing of history to be able to answer the moments, the historical moment that it lives in, especially when it comes to an issue as fundamental to its platform as foreign policy as it is now. Leaving these contradictions leaves weaknesses. And whether you are for socialism, against socialism, ambivalent to socialism, it is an undeniable fact that leaving contradictions as fundamental as this in an organization will weaken it. And so, to me, I'm not saying this with any hate or love in my heart. DSA will either fix the contradiction or it will sink. Fixing that contradiction can happen through time democratically, but I will also say that history does not wait, that this war will not wait, that the amount of death and destruction being caused will not wait 5 more years for DSA to make up their mind after the same length as the Iran-Iraq war. I will say that they need to meet this moment because it will clarify whether they can meet future moments when there will be future wars, future massacres that could be the consequence of U.S. action or the consequence of U.S. inaction. As many people have been killed by the United States doing the wrong things, invading countries, and starting wars of choice, people have also died due to the United States choosing not to act. Kissinger's one of his most dastardly decisions was, as the people of Bangladesh were being massacred, was to do nothing because it served U.S. interests. Was that any less immoral than when we decide to involve ourselves in the bombing of children, when we stand to the side? Did the people who stood aside and watched as Palestinian refugees were massacred in Lebanon by Christian militias, which the IDF did, were they any less immoral or more immoral or as immoral as those who did the massacring? I would say as immoral, or at very least nearly as immoral. And so when it comes to questions like this, especially countries that we've disarmed, we need to have this historical answer, because right now the president of the United States is starting to talk like the type of people who start wars for rapid expansion, not just, and I'm not trying to say just as if regime change wars, but wars of conquest and replacement of peoples have disastrous impacts that can be felt deep into the soil forever, that has been bled into this nation, and we could bleed into nations like Greenland if we're not careful and able to meet the moment. And so I really hope Ukraine can. And I would also say that the world is chaotic. Ukraine is the part of the world I focused on to try to do my best to, know as much about these massacres, know as much about what's going on the front line. I'm going back to the front line tomorrow, right? Because the reason is the world is extremely chaotic. It's extremely destructive, and there's very little actually separating mass death from peace and tranquility. The best way to describe war is the breakdown of law and order. And in Ukraine, I see that on the front line. The lack of law enforcement, the lack of respect for human rights. And I want that question answered here because I don't want that question instead having to be answered in Mexico and Brazil and Japan, wherever it could be next. So I really, really, really think that for DSA's sake, for the country's sake, and for the positive impact the organization could have, it has to reform or it has to sink.
Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on. This is a really good conversation, and I'm glad you guys were willing to come have it here. I know my audience enjoyed it. So if there's anything you guys want to get into in the future, again, make sure to hit me up, and I will do the same. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Good talk.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.